Strike 4. Germany is stuck in travel chaos once again as ground staff of the flagship airline Lufthansa have walked off the job. One of many major strikes that have plagued Germany's travel sector in recent weeks. And in general, industrial action and protests have become a regular feature of life here in Germany. With me here to talk about it is Carsten Brzeski. He's chief economist at ING. Carsten, are you managing to get to where you need to be?
Hardly. These days, traveling in Germany really has become an art. And for business travelers, they don't know it's going to use the train, the car, the plane. It really has become a big nuisance.
Right, let's take a quick look at the situation in detail. Hundreds of Lufthansa flights have been cancelled at Germany's major airports while ground staff are on strike. They are demanding a 12.5% pay rise and an inflation bonus. Walkouts like this one have thrown Germany's transport sector into chaos, as you mentioned. It's the fourth major strike in the country since the start of the year, and it's following Germany's longest ever train strike, which took place a few weeks ago. Now, the fourth major strike in Germany within just a few weeks, as I just mentioned, how does this reflect on the overall mood in the country?
Well, it's clearly going to weigh on the mood in the economy, and we don't have a strong economy. Industrial production is extremely weak. Uncertainty is extremely high. I think we're looking into another year of recession in the German economy. And these strikes, as understandably as they are, they're going to weigh again on economic activity this year. And add to that already the supply chain disruptions coming from the military conflict in the Red Sea. It doesn't look good currently for the German economy.
Right, yeah, this comes at a precarious economic time. So let's take a quick look at the economic picture. On the one hand, the cost of living is still rising. Inflation has come down, but it's not negative. In January, it was at 2.9%. That means prices are still rising, just not as quickly as before. The labor market actually shows that unemployment has been relatively low at under 3 million people unemployed. At the same time, job vacancies remain relatively high. So in other words, Germany is experiencing a tight labor market with ample supply of jobs, but not as much demand. Carsten, do you think this tight labor market essentially is what's making people feel more emboldened to strike?
Oh, definitely. This is the era. This is the time in which employees really they feel safe and they can afford to strike. But there are also economic reasons for that. When you look back at the last 10 years, we hardly had any positive growth in real wages. And that is the downside to wage moderation. So indeed, with the inflation, the high inflation of the last 2 years, most people really suffered a loss in purchasing power. And we will probably only have this year, the first year in a long while, in which real wages on the year will grow again.
Right. And do you expect the labor market to continue to be in favor of employees going forward? Will the strike conducive atmosphere continue?
Well, under the surface of a very tight labor market, we have seen a gradual increase in unemployment already in 2023. Add to that an increase in insolvencies of German businesses. They are now rising by lower double-digit numbers, the number of insolvencies. So this, I think, argues together with the structural transitions, with the ongoing weakness of German industry, argues for a further worsening of the labor market. But on the other hand, we have demographics. Germany is the fastest aging economy in Europe. So these two opposing factors will make the situation for employees slightly weaker in terms of affording strikes, but not weak enough to really stop the strikes. So I really expect for this year more strikes, still strong position for employees to ask for higher wages.
Right, but you mentioned this gloomer economic picture because Germany's economy is struggling. It shrank in the fourth quarter of 2023, and productivity in Germany is already down. That means German workers already put in fewer hours than employees in other industrial countries. Now, you expect strikes to continue and strikers are asking for more money for the same work. Do you feel like there is a disconnect between the expectation of the strikers and the economic reality?
No, it's overlapping. There is not a disconnect. It's simply overlapping. The thing is, what the workers, the employers, now they demand still a compensation of the loss of purchasing power of the last couple of years. This is not looking into the future. And if you would ask an employer, it probably hardly is never the right time to give a pay rise. So here we are really now at a juncture, at a crossroads between still offsetting the loss in purchasing power of the last couple of years, plus then being a bit more cautious given the structural changes, the structural transition the German economy is facing, and therefore also an upcoming weakening of the labor market.
Right, and you mentioned this waning purchasing power. Now, even if inflation continues to go down, food will continue to be more expensive than it was in the past years. So what has to give in order to make this cost of living crisis more acceptable for people?
Probably a more tailor-made support by the government, because when you look at the numbers, in Germany, we have 25% of people who say that they don't have any savings at all. So they cannot even tap into their savings in this cost of living crisis. So more tailor-made support to the lower income households would clearly help. Time will also help if we were to see some wage increases that offset the inflation increase. So it's really, this is a problem that you cannot solve overnight. Tailor-made solutions by the government, plus some wage increase, especially in the low-income households and jobs, that would clearly help.
Right, and you mentioned the government here. Now, these strikers are targeting their employers in the private sector, but these aren't the only labor disputes happening here in Germany. For example, thousands of tractors brought Berlin to a standstill just a few weeks ago as farmers were protesting the phase out of fuel subsidies. So clearly a time of much pressure and tension for the government to spend more money as well. But as an economist, how feasible do you think that is in a time of economic struggle for Germany?
Well, we also have higher interest rates, which means running higher deficits or more debt by the government also costs more money. Government expenditures account for roughly 50% of German GDP. So, of course, theoretically, there is an argument. If you want to spend more, you should save elsewhere. But there is such a long list currently of problems facing the German economy, so many structural changes that we have to go through, which require either government investments or indirect investments via tax incentives, lower taxes. So it's a broad list, a long list of challenges. So I think there is no alternative to maybe come up with something like a special investment vehicle, an off-budget vehicle to make, for example, a Germany 2030 growth fund, which then would have to be financed by additional debt. Because look around in Europe, most other European economies have much higher debt levels. France, Italy, Spain, clearly above 100% of GDP, while Germany is having a government debt to GDP ratio of only 60%.
Right, so Germany should spend more in comparison to its European neighbors. Now that you're addressing Europe, I'd like to zoom out of the German context to compare what striking looks like across the board. Because in the time frame between 2012 and 2021, strikes were actually not as pervasive in Germany as in other countries. Looking at workdays lost to strikes, Belgium and France were the front runners in that time frame, and Germany only came in ninth. Now, you mentioned that this year will see more strikes, in your opinion. Do you expect that Germany will become the next France when it comes to strikes?
Well, at least we're becoming a bit more francophonic, or maybe we've finally arrived in the heart of Europe. You're fully right. We don't have this tradition. We don't have this history of strikes. This in the past really used to be something we knew from television pictures in Belgium, in France. But the situation has changed. And I think really we have arrived in the heart, in the center of Europe, which probably also means that we will see more pictures of strikes in Germany, of protests, pictures that we in the past only knew from our neighbors in France.
Right, and if we compare the economic situation of workers in Europe right now, how does Germany stack up?
Well, the labor market is tight across Europe. So our unemployment rate is in Germany is one of the lowest, but also most other European economies are experiencing very low unemployment rates. So the situation is very similar. What is different is the development of wages over the last 10, 15 years. So in Germany, we usually used wage moderation in order to improve our international cost competitiveness. It was not the sole driver, but it was an important driver. And this is also one of the reasons why private consumption, for example, in Germany has been much weaker than in most other European economies. And now this is turning around, and probably we will have to find a new balance. Remember, in the past, we were always criticized by international institutions to have a more balanced growth mix. And if we were to see higher wages, this could clearly, and which would lead to more private consumption, we would have a more balanced growth model in the German economy.
Right, and let's talk about this balanced growth model. What, in your opinion, are the necessary ingredients for a balanced growth model?
Well, the balanced growth model cannot only come from more consumption, because we also know only just more consumption is not sustainable. What we do need is more domestic investment, public and private investment. If we do these in the German economy, it would immediately also strengthen the position of employees. So more domestically based growth, slightly less dependency on exports would clearly make the German economy more resilient, and would also lead to a more balanced more balanced growth mix.
Carsten Brzeski, thank you so much for talking to us.